If I could only figure out how to get my team motivated.
We are never going to get this project done on time.
Oh my God, my payroll numbers are insane. Why are we having all this overtime?
Do you have these or similar employee problems? Do you feel like some of your employees are just there for a paycheck? Tired of recruiting, interviewing, onboarding, and training just to find out you must do it all over again? Then it's time for you to find out how to have outrageously awesome employees. Sit back, buckle up, and get ready because we're about to drop a knowledge bomb on you. Please welcome to the mic the host of the show, the man who puts the human in human resources, the 007 of team building, the emperor of employee engagement, Randy Starr.
Welcome back to another episode of How to Have Outrageously Awesome Employees. I'm your host, Randy Starr, and today we have a special guest, Kathryn Rainsburg. Kathryn is with Schulte Hospitality Group, and she's a regional human resources director for them. She is responsible for 3 full-service hotels and 10 limited-service hotels. Kathryn, how are you today?
I am good.
Awesome. So are you in Ohio?
Yes, I am in Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. And what is the weather like in Columbus, Ohio today?
Today, I think the high is in the 50s.
Oh,
when I walked my dog this morning, it was 29 degrees.
Ooh.
So
Ooh.
at least it's not snowing.
Yeah, 29 degrees. You love your little furry friend, don't you?
Yeah. My foot warmer.
Exactly. You need one in 29 degrees too.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna take a whole lot of time. This typically goes pretty quickly. We're gonna ask a couple questions about you and about some of the things that you believe in, some of the things you've done. And just to start off, tell us about your background, positions you've held, companies you work for, and what you do now in your current position.
Okay. So I fell into doing human resources. So I was your typical lost kid in college, but now reflecting back to it, I was doing a lot of things that have led me up to being able to do the things I'm doing right now. So in college, I studied literature. I was specializing randomly in medieval literature, but I was double majoring that with women and family studies, and also with a minor in speech communications. So while in college, I was probably a little bit more social than a lot of the other literature majors. So that led me to being like the student department chair. So they had me be a part of the hiring process for interview purposes for incumbent faculty members. So not realizing that one day was going to be my career path, I always really enjoyed that. But then, as most students do, you graduate and you realize, at least this was before healthcare change, now I need insurance, but I don't know what field I want to work in. I had a friend working at the Westin Columbus. She was a bartender at the time, and she was like, hey, just come down and work at the hotel. It's fun. You'll like it, and you get health insurance. And I was like, double bonus. I'll be there with my application. So I was at the Westin for about 4 months, and I had kind of befriended the executive housekeeper, and she had a housekeeping supervisor position come open. And so I marched myself down to the HR office, intending to speak to the HR director about, the inspecting position.
Right.
And I spoke with her, told her about my competencies. I was like, I'm a very responsible person. I can, do things. I'm looking to further myself. I know I'm just a front desk agent right now. And at the end of the conversation, she ended it with, "Have you thought about human resources?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "Well, I think you would actually be pretty good at that." So she's like, "I have an assistant position available. Would you be interested in that?" And
Wow.
I was like, "Well, this wasn't even a part of my thought process." So I accepted and became her assistant.
Wow.
And that during my time as her assistant, that's where I learned. I was kind of the on-property benefits administrator, where I walked everyone through all of our plans
Right.
that the company had offered, and I assisted them with enrolling in them. I also did all of the new hires that came into the building, making sure that they were in our system and properly, put in. Started, assisting with documentation and really all the kind of admin work that
Right.
you can do is what I had done. And along with that was whenever Weston had a really intensive training program where it was all in class. So they shipped me off to do the train the trainer for that. So I was certified in that and done that. And then our economy kind of took a puke. So I was lucky enough to work for Marcus Hotels and Resorts, and their philosophy at that time was to not lay people off, to just, as people leave, just don't replace.
Right.
And, job sharing was a thing.
Right.
So at the time, not only was I in HR, but I was assisting in various positions around the hotel. So I feel like with that experience, I learned enough about every position to be able to talk about it. So now, like, if an associate comes to me and they have a problem with something in their position, I can talk to them about their job because I have an actual understanding of what they are doing, and I can ask them questions. So I can tell when someone's trying to pull something over on me. I understand what it's like to make 10 beds in a day. I know how hard that is on the body and how tiring that can be. So I can sympathize with them as well.
Right.
And empathize with them about what they're going through. So I was there for a few years, and then when things started to pick back up, Marcus had acquired a hotel, a Westin in Atlanta, Georgia, where I went and was part of the transition team on that and helped them with that. And then later to go down as task force help, and then picked up the HR manager job there. And I was there for a couple of years. And then they had me go up to Madison, Wisconsin, and I was there for a few months. And there I saw an opportunity here in Columbus, Ohio, with Schulte over the 2 hotels. My family is from here. And so I kind of wanted to get back home. It's not that I particularly was looking to get out of Marcus or anything like that. They were a wonderful company to work for. But the opportunity to be closer to home and not have to use my PTO for holidays and vacations.
Right.
And, to come back home just to travel for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. I was ready to take time off and not be around my family. So the opportunity came up, and I submitted my resume And less than 24 hours later, I got a call from them.
Yeah.
And then I set up an interview with, I had actually was hired originally as a dual director of human resources over the Sheridan and the Doubletree.
Right.
And so I was only in the position about a month and a half when they approached me about the regional position, and I had been working for Marcus for a period, and I was kind of used to the way that they had done stuff.
Right.
So I was like, well, I've only worked for you for like 2 months. And so then they're like, well, you're doing, what we need you to do. My self-sufficiency was there, my, asking questions, and they felt like I would be the right person for the position. So I, thought, what the heck? Why not? So I
Exactly.
took on
You
the
can see your
challenge.
value.
So I did my first Schulte transitions. So in the course of between April and May, transitioned the 11 other hotels over to Schulte. So I was doing the transition meetings, assisting the, my corporate office folks, in the sense of, making sure everyone's information was implemented into the system.
Right.
Making sure that, everything was there, and that, we had everything set up properly for whenever it went, live, as one of ours. So that was whenever I was with Marcus, that I was there at that transition, just, assisting with paperwork. I wasn't leading the meetings. For this time at these limited service properties, I was one leading the meetings.
Right.
That was really fun and exciting to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed it. I mean, a transition is never easy. It's a fun challenge and really exciting. And I continue to really enjoy it. And the RVP that I'm working with, one of the senior vice presidents of operations that I did some of the transitions with, I clicked really well with. And
Right.
I mean, I joke with him even now, like, I'm a traveling companion. And we joke, and I really enjoy the atmosphere that I'm in.
Right.
Because it's very open and the collaboration is there. So so far in my time with Schulte, which has been about a year and a half now, I have really enjoyed being able to do the things that I'm doing.
Well, it sounds like they have a tremendous culture.
Yeah.
I mean, if you fit in that quickly and they realize your value, obviously.
I was really, like, I don't want to say I was shocked, but I was just kind of like, oh, all right. I mean, because I was used to a much more traditional,
right,
way of going about it, like doing 15 interviews for, an inner promotion.
Right.
Not that I did 15 interviews, but you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
interviewing with everybody. They're more of a sense of judging. Up the chain.
Yeah.
My boss now, Ray Mitchell, he got his feedback from people, in the field. So he was asking our benefits manager, what her interactions were like with me.
Right.
What payroll interactions were with me.
Right.
What, the other regionals interactions were like with me before he even approached me.
Right.
So I appreciate that. He also had talked with some folks on property before he reached out to me. So
more of a casual approach versus the traditional methodical.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I really appreciate that. I mean, because
sure,
it makes the empowerment that I have right now to do things, to make decisions. I really enjoy everything I'm doing. I'm
good. Well, tell us this. Tell us what it is about human resources that you enjoy the most.
I think one, it's the social aspect of it.
Right.
Not in the sense of party planning. I actually don't really enjoy planning parties.
Okay.
I enjoy it in the sense of watching people grow in their careers.
Right.
Watching the camaraderie blossom.
Right.
In the different departments. Because whenever I came in, these hotels in Columbus had been recently acquired by Schulte. And it always takes about a year to get on track with the culture.
Right.
And that's just something that I've experienced before, and I've heard that feedback from other folks. So you got to give it a little bit before, because you got to get the right people in the right places. So
we all love change.
Now that the winds of change have come through, and some settlement has happened. And I was just talking with the general manager of the DoubleTree, and actually an interviewee candidate about yesterday in specific here. We had an employee rally that we do monthly where we're participating in the Hilton's Catch Me at My Best, and everybody was giving certificates to each other for things that we have been doing for each other, and praising each other out loud.
Right.
And there was like one table of mostly like housekeeping folks, but all the other tables at that luncheon was mixed. So you didn't have, sales sitting in one corner looking at everybody in that one corner, and housekeeping over here, and the kitchen over there, and food and beverage over here.
Right.
It was a mixture, and people were laughing, and people were joking with each other and talking with each other. And it just made me feel so good to see that progress happen, and to see us finally get to that point.
That's
because
tremendous.
Whenever I had arrived, that type of culture wasn't here. I mean, it took a full year to get to that culture.
When you can get the different departments to not separate by themselves, and they just become a group.
Yeah.
They're all after the same thing, and they realize that. That's tremendous. That would be, the next question is one of your greatest accomplishments in HR, and you've listed
that would be
already.
It.
Yeah. So would you consider, okay, first of all, you went from 2 hotels to 13 hotels in a very short period of time. That's a huge accomplishment. And then within a year, you have created or helped build a culture that enables, and you know, I worked in hotels for 20 years, and I know how it is. In fact,
Yeah.
we in operations designed hotels to be separate. You had food and beverage, and then you had rooms and related services. So I can remember when I was a part-time front desk clerk, we had softball games against one another, which just created more division, really. If you think about it, it's like, okay, it's us against them, when in fact it should have never been like that. It should have always been us to serve the guest, or whatever, what Hilton's calling it, catch me at my best. So out of those two, the quick escalation in responsibility or the culture, which one of those would you say is your greatest accomplishment? Or is there another one?
I mean, I feel like there's different things that, I mean, right now I feel right now in this moment of seeing their culture move, I feel like this is one of my greatest accomplishments, because, you know, to be honest, whenever I first started, I was like, oh God, I hope I can do this some sort of justice, or I mean, because it can be an intimidating thing to come through.
It is.
I mean,
it sounds like
to
you've done
jump
such a
from
tremendous job.
I'm also someone who doesn't, I don't look for accolades or anything like that. I just want to see the things be successful and stand in the background and be happy about that success.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
So to see the culture shift here, and to see some of the culture shifts happening at my other properties now that we've got some of the right things in place.
Right.
It's one is like a sense of relief, like, oh, finally we got people doing their job and I don't have to call them up on the regular.
Right.
And to see folks be able to progress their career is also a great accomplishment for me to see, because I feel like that could be a portion of their success is a reflection of possibly me pushing them. Because I have one person that I pushed earlier in my career that when she started at the front desk under me, she was, you know, I would say the classic college kid. On Sunday mornings when she would come in, she would look like a mild train wreck. And like one day I was just like, I sat her down and I was like, one, I know you are in college, but I need you to not smile like a barroom floor when you come into work. So, because it happens. But
yes, it does.
You know, you're a hospitality major. This is your profession. This is the start of your career. Get your crap together. If you want to move up and you want to do the things that you want to do in your future, you can't come in here hungover. So
that's great.
It's my advice. And she did. She got her stuff together, and it was funny because the hotel that we were at, it was one of the West Ends, and we had been renovated. And actually, the president of West End Hotels and Resorts came in, and she was chatting with the front desk and this gal. And after Sue Brush had walked away, this gal turned to me. She was like, she just told me that the presidential suite is larger than her apartment in New York City.
Wow.
Like, that's what I'm working for? I was like, yeah, if you would be the president of a hospitality company like that, yeah. And we kind of joked about that a little bit, but she now works for American Express Travel as a meeting business planner, and she's traveling all over the world.
Wow.
Loves her job, loves her career, but it has been exciting for myself to see her progress from, you know, the gal from the front
Sunday
desk
morning
to
to
where
this.
she's at. Yeah,
From
to
her Sunday
being
mornings.
one of the most professional. Yeah, from her hot mess of a Sunday morning to where she is now professionally. And you know, I still check in with her, and we're
Oh, that's
still,
great.
you know, we're friends outside of work.
Oh, that's good.
And it's awesome to see that.
Yeah. Relationships. It's interesting. The hospitality industry is so social to begin
Yeah,
with, and the development of relationships that last beyond work, and everybody transfers from one hotel to another, from one company to another. It's just phenomenal.
yeah.
Tell us what type of training do you feel is the most important for hotel employees?
I think just that basic customer service, because whether you're in the front of the house or in the back of the house, or if you're in HR, you're still servicing a customer,
Right.
whether it be an internal or an external customer. You're just trying to make people happy.
Right.
I mean, in HR, there's days you're not going to make anybody happy, but
Unfortunately, that's true.
You just have to remember your internal and external customers.
So
And keeping that in mind.
Does Schulte have, or do you have a particular customer or guest service program that all the employees go through?
We don't have anything specific.
Okay.
It's at least on property. It's a more of a culture of making sure that our associates are aware that they're empowered
Right.
to take situations on.
Right.
And even with our managers, that they are empowered enough to handle situations.
Gotcha.
Because I've had managers before thought that they had to wait on me to serve documentation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, please nip this in the butt after,
Yes,
you know,
please.
you don't have to wait on me, please. If it's an attendance thing,
Yeah.
please don't bother me until it's a final written warning.
Right.
Just follow the handbook.
Right.
And actually, I have an assistant at the Sheraton, and she has created kind of plug and play documentation, because this was something that I wanted to do, but I knew that this would be a great exercise for her to do.
Right.
So we took our basic documentation form, and I had her go around to each of the department heads and talk with them and get their top 5 most documented offenses.
Okay.
Like things that they're regularly writing documentation for.
Right.
And then she took those 5 offenses and she went through the handbook and pre-wrote out documentation for those situations. So like we have someone, like one of them is for not dropping correctly at the end of the shift. So
mishandling
all the
of
manager
funds.
has to, mishandling of funds. So she has taken out the portion of the handbook and placed it into the documentation, directly quoting our cash handling policy, directly quoting our funds handling, and the different parts of the handbooks that you would regularly take a manager, 5 to 10 minutes out of their life to go dig out, copy and paste and put in there.
Right.
So now, instead of the managers having to spend the time to find all of that to put in there, all they have to do is put the situation in
Right.
the dates and the times and the amount. And then if they've previously discussed with the associate the same offense before, there's another additional box where they write down those dates. And then they can pick the outlined level of where they're at with the progress of the documentation. And I've gotten a tremendous amount of feedback from the managers that we've kind of test piloted this out with. They're like, this saves us so much time.
Oh yeah, I would
And we are
imagine.
able to get this out faster. I'm
Yep.
like, thank the Lord.
Plus there's
Accountability.
yeah, exactly. Plus there's no confusion. There's no confusion on the manager's behalf.
Yeah.
It's already done.
The handbook is already there. It's
Right.
in there. And even in the next steps progress of the documentation,
Right.
it outlines in the handbook our progression, our disciplinary level progression.
Right.
And the training the retraining would be described in there as well. Now, if it was a termination, all they'd have to do is delete that further training
Right.
language out of there.
Well, that is a great, I really like that. I think it does a couple things. Besides being extremely efficient, it takes some of the legal questioning that the manager has. He's
Yeah.
going to say, hey, I've got this. What should I do? You've already got it for them. So they just say, here, fill in the blanks and say, sign here. So
Yeah.
that's
And if they still want someone to review it, Erica will glance it over just to make sure the portions that they wrote
right.
looks good. And I'm having her sit in with them whenever they serve those.
That's-
Then again, because she's a coordinator and hasn't been exposed to too much in the hospitality field yet,
Right.
she's getting that exposure and understanding of the associates' jobs, and what the managers are going through, because that just better helps her prepare herself that if the associates ever come back and vent or talk to her, she can intelligently talk about the situation.
Awesome. Hey, listen, Kathryn, we talked a little bit off air about this next question. So I know what you're going to say, but I also know before, if we wouldn't have talked, I know what you were going to say. Tell us what your typical day is like. What do you do on a typical day?
On a typical day, this is what I would hope to do. I peruse my emails quickly in the morning before whichever property I'm at stand up. So I float between two properties in Columbus.
Right.
I technically out of two of them. So one morning I might be at the Sheridan, another morning I might be at the Doubletree. I try to split it up 2 days a week at each, and then on Friday I flip myself to whichever property might have the needs more.
Right.
So I peruse my emails quickly. I read them and then I click them back to unread, so that way I can go back to them. So I just kind of formulate in my head who I need to talk to first,
right,
or what I need to do first, or if there's something I can ask my assistant to do, I have her help me out with something. So I would, forward it to her. So then I go to morning stand-up. I would then have a quick one-on-one moment with whatever manager I might need to talk to that day about any associate issues, any recruitment issues. And then I would check in quickly with the general manager. And usually, typically at each property, since I'm physically at them, I like to do a lap around the hotel.
right.
So all the hourly associates see my face.
Oh,
I check in with them.
there you go.
Because I think that's really important to not be the scary entity, because I don't want people to hide from me, because I'm not scary. I'm here to help you. I am a resource. I'm not here to fire everybody.
Right.
It's not what I want to do.
Right. Exactly.
My goal is to not have to recruit ever again. I'd rather just retain everybody.
Exactly.
So I do my hot lap around the hotel, talk with everybody. Then I go back to my desk and kind of go through my emails and call those who I need to call. And if I might have new hires, I might I would go through the new hire process with them, with onboarding them, and then going through their health benefits with them and talking with them as well. So that's, I would say, my typical day.
Right.
I get a lot of people, I answer phone calls as they come to me and try to get back with them as soon as possible. I might have an hour or two of closed door time because sometimes I get a lot of frequent just visitors. And as much as I greatly appreciate the fact that people now like to come and talk to me about anything,
Right.
I have 13 hotels and I need to be able to give my time up to those other ones.
Exactly.
So it's a matter of not necessarily saying that there are fires in other places, but I need to make sure that if I have a fire somewhere, I need to put it out quickly and then move on to the next task.
Exactly.
But
well,
that would be
that's
my dream day.
That would be awesome, and we both know that that's probably pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, in the hospitality industry, you never know what's going to happen. And then when you deal in any labor-intensive industry where you've got people doing the jobs versus machines or computers, you don't know what's going to happen. It just takes one person to call off to change
the whole machine off.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the whole thing gets thrown off. So that's awesome.
Well, and at my properties where my RVPs are trying to instill in my general managers, and I am trying to instill to make sure we're always hiring for specific positions.
Right.
I don't want to ever have a call off really negatively affect us.
Right.
So, and actually, you might be floored by this because I feel like a lot of people are really surprised by this whenever I say this. But out of all my properties, all 13 of them, I have only 3 people that are provided to us through a temporary agency. Everyone else is on my own. All of my housekeepers at every property are ours. They're not through a temp agency. They're not through contract labor.
Okay, so let me, I think that's the way it should be, personally.
Yeah.
I personally believe that the employees that work at the hotel should be yours.
Yeah.
So,
and there's some
tell me about your labor
hotels
markets
out there.
Are the labor markets bad, good, or what?
Well, it depends upon the area of the country, which is something that I've learned recently.
Yep.
Columbus, before I left, I was aligned with a few different organizations, and whenever I came back, I kind of rekindled myself with those organizations to, because again, my women's studies, family studies roots, paired me with some social groups that are, one of them is getting women that may have been in domestic violence situations back into the workforce, or if they've never worked before, getting them their first jobs. I get some folks through that for our housekeeping department. And there's just other back to work programs that I have snuggled up with for those. But we're also, because of the cultural shift, I'm getting a lot more internal recommendations of people reaching out to friends or family members to come to work at the property for various positions. Now, I prefer if it's a family member that they don't work in the same department. So if it's a direct relation, I say, I greatly appreciate that you want them to come and work for us. If you can't have them working alongside you, I want them to come over to my other property across the street.
Right.
And usually everyone's pretty cool with that. So
your
that
creativity in developing, I guess we could call it leads for jobs, is not only
yeah,
creative, but it's also establishing Schulte and your hotels as good corporate neighbors in the
yeah.
communities that they're in. That's phenomenal. I think that's great.
I mean, because we have an open call list. Like, if we have another Hilton property here in Columbus, right? We told them, hey, we have a few people here at the DoubleTree going out, want to take PTO at the same time that work the front desk. Do any of your associates at your front desk want to make some overtime? We'll pay for it if they want to come and pick up a shift over here.
Yeah.
So there's flexibility in that. And the same thing kind of happens for our banquet servers between
Right.
properties,
Right.
because you have a long on-call list. So especially for the Sheraton, because we've got a lot more meeting space over there. So if we have a function at the DoubleTree that is larger than, it needs more folks in place than what we have on our on-call list over here, I take from the pool over there. And kind of vice versa. And I'm trying to ensue that same air with our kitchen, because physically the kitchen here at the DoubleTree is smaller than the Sheraton. I mean, the Sheraton is a lot larger. They have their own pastry department.
Right.
So we're instilling over here at the DoubleTree, like, hey, look, because of the physical kind of constraints of here, let's start sharing some services between, like, get all of our cakes and pastries possibly from the Sheraton. And I could, we could figure out how to, work that out, so that way we're no longer ordering bakery items from like Cisco or things like that. Because if I can create it in-house next door, and it's just a matter of doing a twice a week delivery over to the other hotel, I would rather do that.
Right.
Because then we can, promote that in-house scratch-made product.
Awesome.
So, and that also helps differentiate as well. And also, like, I don't want to promote them as making the best ones, but the Sheraton, our pastry guy over there, they have a from scratch made Buckeye. I don't know if you've ever had a Buckeye before, but they're delicious. It's basically, normally it's made with peanut butter, but they make their own in-house cashew and black walnut butter.
Oh my gosh.
To make, and they coat that in chocolate.
No.
And I'm like, we need those also over at the DoubleTree for amenities. And that would be also a lot, because we're at the DoubleTree right now, kind of in the process of soon creating a new menu. Like, there's a lot of boutique restaurants here in Columbus, with the final course, 2 pieces of, alongside the dessert, like 2 or 3 pieces of chocolate also might be served.
Right.
Like, wouldn't it be awesome if we could also, instead of, doing something like that, serving like, the Buckeye along with their check or something of that nature, just
right.
Spice it up a little bit, kind of think a little bit more creatively out of the box. And I want my chefs at my 2 properties that are next door to each other to be in communication and drive their creativity between each other. So, like, just that way they know, hey, I'm developing this menu. We noticed that this isn't trending or working over here. Make sure you don't do that over here, and vice versa, where they can give each other feedback on what's been popular, maybe which, restaurant might be a good thing to test something new at. So really opening up the doors of creativity between folks.
It's funny how
it all goes back to culture too. So
right, it's funny how effective communication it works like that. Okay, yeah. Kathryn, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I've got one more question for you, and this one would be For someone who is considering entering human resources or is maybe just starting out in human resources, that's listening to this podcast right now or watching us on YouTube, what give me a few words of wisdom for them that you would pass on to help them become successful?
I think always make sure that you're approachable and that you're not afraid to ask questions to those above you. Because if you're too afraid to ask for help or too afraid to or timid to handle difficult situations, HR might not be for you, because you deal with such a wide range of personalities, that there are days it can be real rough. But then there are days like yesterday and today that are bringing me complete joy. So you have to remember one goes in hand and one goes out the other. And remember that HR, you sometimes are the final decision maker.
Right.
Most of the time you are the final decision maker. But also remember that in my experience, because of my approachability, people will come and confide in you about things in their life that has nothing to do with work. So I would suggest, if you're specifically going into HR and hospitality, make sure you know all of your local resources to be able to direct people to.
Right.
Because that can, if you know local resources you can direct people to for certain things, that then creates an even more a loyal associate, and which drives down your turnover rate. That's one thing that I know that has attributed to some of the successes around here.
Well, that is some very good advice. Kathryn, we really appreciate you taking time out of your not typical day to spend with us and pass along some of your experiences and your wisdom to the listeners. This was awesome. I mean, people that watch these, sometimes I've received comments like, "You don't even look like you're paying attention." It's because I'm taking notes. So there's a couple of things that I want to just mention before we conclude this episode. Going all the way back to the very beginning when you were with Marcus, and you mentioned they had a philosophy, or they didn't want to let people go. They didn't want to lay people off. They wanted. Yeah. So that kind of goes.
Well, that was in the time of the recession. So
right, and you worked. How many different departments did you work in? You were basically cross-trained in an entire hotel, right?
Yeah, essentially. The only thing that I hadn't done there was work in the kitchen and be a property maintenance engineer. Right. Although, actually, I did that in college. That was my college summer job, was working for Otterbine's maintenance department. So I actually also have an idea about that, and I could tell you how to clean out an air conditioner coil. So,
well,
yeah.
cross training is so vital that it just amazes me when, and I read comments from surveys that we do, and I've read every comment that's ever been entered into our system or written on a piece of paper and shipped to us. I even read foreign language comments when they come back after they've been translated, and it just befuddles me that people are asking to be cross-trained. They're like, "Oh, I'd really like to be cross-trained." What in the world? I mean, why are we not doing that? Because obviously that happened to you early in your career, and you have taken that philosophy or that thought process and you have used it to your advantage, to where you not only cross-train within the hotel, but you're bringing people from other hotels over. It's just amazing. I mean, that's just such a, the other thing I want to,
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I had housekeepers at one of my hotels. I was like, guess what? I'm going to surprise you all, and I'm going to go and inspect some rooms. And some of the room attendants were like, you don't know how to inspect rooms. I was like, girl, you don't want me to come in your room ever again after I inspect it.
Right.
And she's like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Like, see you in an hour.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that there's been a change, there has been a shift in human resources, and it's happened in most industries. Human resources used to be the personnel department or employee relations department. That was where employee records were kept, and you did the interviewing and paperwork and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's all changed now. It's become more of a business partner. And a lot of companies give their human resources a title that somewhat relates them to being a business partner. But the fact, when you were talking about the pastries and making them here and bringing them there, I mean, that's a perfect example of being a great business partner, and just the ideas and allowing it. It helps everybody. It helps the business. It helps employees. You know, it reduces costs. It increases revenues. I mean,
and I will say that that's probably one of the attributes that I picked up with Marcus, because they, whenever at the properties I was at for them, or at least they were very kind of, they made sure that everyone in a management position understood how to read a P&L.
Yep.
And that is vital to understand where your money's going.
Right.
And how each department affects each other. And even in the HR aspect of it, having managers understand what the financial impact is when I have to do an unemployment, you know, if someone's collecting unemployment, how that affects us.
Exactly.
It's vital to an operation.
Yeah.
And whenever I find out some other HR managers or my contemporaries here, even in like Columbus, that they don't really think about that or have not been exposed to that, I'm just kind of like, oh, well, there's my one up. Never mind.
Well,
so that's also, I think, a vital thing to understand.
Yeah, I agree. Kathryn, this has been awesome. Again, I really appreciate your time. I know everybody who listens to this is going to get all kinds of great tidbits of information and things that they can implement and help them become better, help their employees become better. And, you know, obviously this is all about, you know, how to have outrageously awesome employees. So I'm going to go ahead and conclude this episode. And if anybody would like more information on how to have outrageously awesome employees, just send me an email or a text message. That information is going to be floating around on the screen somewhere. Also, leave a review on iTunes and subscribe to the channel. And we will look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks and have a great day. Bye for now.
Thanks for hanging out with us. Please feel free to contact Randy with any questions about team building or employee engagement issues. Subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified when new episodes are published.